Today I am sewing up the brand new pattern from Made by Elle. This is the Grand Stocking. I know I just sewed a stocking last week, but this one's a different version than the one I sewed last week. And plus, I really just wanted to showcase these gorgeous colors and make a stocking, so I thought I'd make a tutorial on it. My print is from Natural Nerd. This is a cotton woven print, and then I'm also going to be using a Minky, and this is from So Girly Fun. I have thread from Wizardry, and I have a tag from Heartwood and Hide that I placed on a vinyl backing that I'll attach to the front of the stocking. For the main pieces, you will have 2 lining and 2 exterior. They will be mirrored. I didn't add anything to my lining pieces, just left them as an uninterfaced cotton woven. For my exterior pieces, I did add a layer of fleece, Thermoland to be specific, on both of these pieces, the front and the back exterior. For the Minky, I did add an SF101 just to give it a little bit of structure on it, but really it's not too necessary. And the Minky will be for the cuff that goes around the top. The only other piece you need is your hanging loop, which I did not interface it. You have a pattern piece for each of these, so this makes it a really quick cut and it's going to be a really quick sew. Louise, the designer, does have her own tutorial for this, and so I'm just sewing mine up on camera, but she does have a full tutorial, and it's always great to watch the designer's tutorials because they explain exactly how they want it to go. Mine is just an interpretation and kind of doing it a little bit differently. So I'm going to go off camera and I'm going to sew my tag. I have it upside down. I'm going to sew this tag onto the front, and then we'll come back and start constructing this stocking. So here's my exterior with that tag sewn on. Now for me, I don't really care which way is my exterior, which way it's going, but if you have a preference and you're putting a tag on, you may want to make note of that because it will depend on where you have the stocking hanger on. I think it's kind of personal the way it hangs, but for me, mine's going to hang this way. So it'll be hanging like this with the hook here. Now for my exterior, this is going to be my front. Let's grab out the back piece. And then I'm just going to place these right sides together. I'll do the same thing with the lining and I'll explain the difference between these. So for the exterior, I'll start sewing at the top and go all the way around back up the other side. But for the lining piece, I'll still start at the top and go down, but I will leave an opening. The pattern tells us how big of an opening, but we're going to leave an opening here at the bottom on the lining only, not on the exterior. Also, pay attention to the seam allowance with the lining because it does change. So keep those things in mind. But what I'm going to do is sew the exterior all the way around. I'll sew the lining off camera, but just note that you're keeping that opening, and the pattern does tell you how big of an opening to keep and shows you exactly where the opening is best to be placed. So here's the lining sewed right sides together, and you can see my seam allowance does a crease here at the bottom, and I do have an opening left here. Here is the exterior. I have no changes in my seam allowance, but I did use pinking shears to kind of get rid of some of that bulk without creating just a really thick seam, just to reduce a little bit on the sides here and in the curve. No opening at the bottom of this one. I'm going to set these pieces aside for just a minute, and I'm going to pull out that hanging loop. I took this piece and I made just a 4-way fold, folded the raw edges to the middle and then folded again. Now I'm going to top stitch down both sides. After you sew down both sides to top stitch this hanging loop, go ahead and pull out your cuff piece. If your print is directional, make sure you have it orientated so that you're looking at the top going down. It doesn't really matter at this moment too much, but I'm still just kind of orientating it that way. The pattern tells us how far down to place this hanging loop, and then I'm going to have it overhanging just a little, so that's a little more security there. And I'm just going to base this in place. Then what I'm going to do is I'm going to place this right sides together, add some clips here because Minky is notorious for being slippery and slides around, difficult to sew with. Super cute in the end though. But what I'm going to do now is I'm going to use the seam allowance from the pattern, and I'm going to sew down this edge. I have the short edges matching, so I folded it in half. And now I'm going to back stitch at the top and go all the way down. Where the Minky is hanging out, it's kind of hard to know my perfect seam allowance. I see I lost a little bit, so I'm going to just clean that up. I'm going to flip over this other side. I don't think I'm too off there. Now what I want to do is I'm going to turn this right sides out and kind of match that seam up. You can go ahead and make your center and quarter marks before you do this step. It'd be a lot easier. If you haven't already made your quarter marks, go ahead and do that now. And let's go ahead and pull out this exterior piece and let's turn it right sides out. Once you have this right sides out, what you're going to do is you're going to have it where you are looking at your front. Your front is right sides up. And then what I want to do is I want to have this raw edge against this top piece. So I'm going to open it up. I want my loop to be on this side. So I'm going to slip it on here. Match up your quarter marks on your stocking and your cuff and clip all the way around. I'm going to clip this off camera, get everything matched up, and then I'm going to come back and then we're just going to sew around this top edge to secure these two pieces. So I have this clipped all around the opening. Now Louise tells us to baste all around the cuff piece before we put the exterior on it, but I'm just going to baste it like this. So one way or the other, before you add the lining, you should baste something. Whether you baste the cuff by itself or whether you baste the cuff to the exterior, basting is going to be a good step before you get that lining in here. So what I'm going to do is just go all the way around here with a basting stitch. I'm going to go slow to make sure I'm not losing any of the seams because I actually have 3 seams right now. So I got those 2 pieces basted together. Everything's going great. So now I'm going to pull out my lining piece. Whenever I read this tip in the pattern, I'm like, wait, what am I doing? So what we're doing is we're going to keep our lining wrong sides out. I'm going to stick my hand here in the top. And then I'm going to hope that I have a big enough opening there. But I'm going to start pulling this exterior through that opening hole. I'm going to ask Louisa, what in the world? Why am I doing this? Why am I not just slipping this inside? Since she's a designer, she told me, she said, hey, look, it's going to be very bulky to have everything in that other way. If we do it this way, we can have half of it hanging out while we still attach the top. I'm like, oh yeah, that makes so much sense. So this is the way we're doing it. We are going to match up those quarter marks once again, clip all the way around, and then we're going to sew with the full seam allowance this time, not a basting stitch, and get everything attached. You may have a lot of bulk here. If you do, just go slow, ease it up. It depends on the materials you're using as to how much bulk you actually have here, but everything is fitting wonderfully, and so it's a really good fit. You just got to ease it all in. If you're having any problems with it fitting, just put your hands in there and stretch it out and kind of distribute the bulk a little bit. It's going to fit. I'm double checking to make everything's matching up, and now I'm going to sew around here with the full seam allowance given in the pattern. I feel like this is a step that's easy to get kind of things skewed if you're using Minky. So if you're using Minky, be careful because the like furry parts will be sticking up and you might not think you have it all even. I'm not going to trim up that seam. I'm just going to leave it there and see how it looks like with that extra bulk, maybe adding some extra support for the Minky since I didn't really interface it with anything. I'm going to slowly get these 2 pieces apart and separate them. Be careful when you're sewing around that cuff. Where my lining was not interfaced, it was just trying to creep up everywhere, so just be careful with that part. I left that birthing hole very small, so it may take me a few minutes to get it out. Once you get it all separated, go ahead and put your hand inside and just really make sure you take the time to get these corners out. I will probably even clip this overnight to make sure. You could iron it. I just don't really feel like it'll need iron. I feel like it'll be more needing clipped all the way around. I'm not going to close up my hole just yet. I will do that later off camera. I'm just going to stick it down in there so we can look at this finished stocking. And then I'll do the closing of that lining opening later. But look at how gorgeous this is. Let me see if you can see it all on camera. Now, if you wanted, you could probably do some top stitching of some sort. I am definitely not doing any top stitching. I have Minky. If I do top stitching, it's going to look really ugly. But look at how gorgeous this is. And this is really like no time at all to do this sew. I will close up the opening of my lining. I'll do that off camera. I'll also take the time to clip and press these seams out really flat. So what I like to do instead of ironing is I like to roll the seams and then put those big metal clips. Let me show you. I'll put these all around and I'll actually let it sit overnight and kind of compress it, the fleece, to have it to lay the way I want. But this pattern is adorable. I've never made stockings until this year and I'm falling in love with making them. I just can see myself actually making new sets every year. This is gorgeous. My fabric is from Natural Nerd. She does draw all her own designs. This is her own artwork. I will leave a link for her business and her Facebook group in my description. The pattern is the Grand Stocking. This is from Made by Elle. I will leave the link to purchase this pattern as well as a link to her Facebook group in my description also. I'll have a link for the Minky as well. And this is such a fun, adorable pattern. Perfect for a quick sew, for a gift, even especially if you want to be extra special and fill it up with treats for the recipient. Super cute. Thank you, Louise, for letting me sew up a tutorial for this, and thank you for another cute pattern. I love all of Louise's patterns and I have videos for all of them. So definitely check out her video too on the construction of this one. I'm sure hers is much better than mine. Thank you so much, and I hope today in your sewing room that you sew something that just makes you feel merry and bright, and I hope you have a wonderful day.